they're just kind of writing it off in total. But I mean, I can't think of any funny sitcom that doesn't have some kind of truth to it, and the truth generally has a little.
Well, I mean, like with any other form, though, there are sitcoms that are just not going to have any sort of social commentary. They're not going to have any deeper meaning than the surface terrible kitsch joke or whatever they're playing for. But I would agree that good sitcom writing has, usually speaks to whatever is going on in the moment, and actually is able to do so in a way that they can play it off that drama usually can't.
So pretty much you're comparing you're pretty much comparing. I was about to say Punky Brewster, but that isn't completely true. You're comparing Saved by the Bell to The Good Place.
Am I?
Yes.
Okay.
Something that doesn't say anything socially, other than the special episode.
I don't know. I am not a Saved by the Bell fan, but I would say it has something very social to say about No, I got nothing.
It was, it was reflective of the teens that they
culture.
Were, high school culture.
In a very specific pocket of existence in the 90s there.
Teen lessons.
Sure. Why not? Mm-hmm. It had Screech.
Yeah.
Basically the modern day, what was the guy? Mr. Carter. That guy from...
Barbarino?
Thank you, yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yeah.
Screech, when I lived in Milwaukee, Screech lived there and used to hang out at the bars that I used to frequent.
Between questionable filmings of adult films?
I believe this was before he entered the porn industry.
Before?
Yeah.
Pre-porn.
And are we allowed to swear? Probably shouldn't.
Our podcast has an explicit rating. If we swear, more people might walk in.
But, I mean, people are going to see Aladdin, so I don't want to say...
Fuck Aladdin?
But, shh. I don't want to say that Screech was an asshole, but he was an asshole.
Well,
you're welcome for
that's like
broaching
on public
that.
record. I think you're not going to be the first to go down saying that.
No, I probably won't be the last.
No. So what I wanted to know, and I'm glad that I swore before I saw there was a kid sitting at a high top table out there. Now,
it's cool. Yeah, that's a cool kid. Yeah.
Okay. So we recently. In attempting to sort of talk about the first two seasons of The Good Place, because we found out through the course of doing our show that people actually were, as I said they might be, watching along with us, and so for us to talk ahead about third season was spoiling it for people.
Yeah, I spoiled it once.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
We heard about that.
Yeah.
So now... We took an episode and kind of compared the first two seasons, one to the other, as two of the seminal albums of a William Martin Joel.
Everyone else knows him as Billy.
Right, sure. Whatever, those, casual acquaintances. But, so we've got essentially thinking of the first season as The Stranger, the 1977 classic, featuring such songs as Movin' Out, Anthony's song, or,
If that's moving up, he's moving out.
Oh, so you're familiar.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't hate things that I'm not unfamiliar with.
You have 2 ears in the heart.
So, and then the follow-up, and perhaps arguably more consistent, 52nd Street. Now...
Can you ramble off a few of those top...
My Life.
Chart toppers.
My Life, A Big Shot, Honesty.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of sitcoms, My Life was the theme to Bosom Buddies.
Though not sung by Billy Joel.
No. We had a very long discussion about that.
We did.
I bet you did.
So you've listened.
So yeah, if any pair of podcast hosts could have a long conversation about the theme song to Bosom Buddies and whom it was sung by, it would be us. But no, now if you were to maybe not in such eloquent and poignant terms that were completely scholarly and well researched, what is
wow,
what is your sort of feeling having watched through that of where the two seasons compare to each other?
Okay, I'll talk about that, but I'm not going to do it by paralleling any Billy Joel songs. However, I will.
mean, do what you want. It's your life.
I will. I'm happy to talk about
Go
Billy
ahead with
Joel.
your own life, Jerry.
I think we should revisit that. There are 2 Jews we're going to talk about tonight, and one of them is Billy Joel. So, yeah.
Who's the other one?
Wow.
We'll
Who's the
get
other?
to that.
A mystery Jew?
And I'm not counting myself.
I was going to say, are we talking about...
I have
Or
my own
me.
issues, and they're not to be broached on this podcast. So
Okay. Boy, I think... Well, I mean, that kind of sets a weird stage of talking about those 2 seasons. Like, I feel like you have a really definite idea based on the songs of those records of Billy Joel,
Sure.
how you think those went. And I did not hear you talk about that, so I'm curious. I'll have to go back and listen.
Mm-hmm.
But
I personally think it's our best episode. But definitely the most organic and on topic.
okay.
I thought we were pretty strong about comparing Thanos to Doug Forsett.
Yeah, that was a pretty strong argument.
Wow.
Bulletproof, even.
Mm-hmm. It was inevitable.
So now in my mind, I feel like it's a challenge for me to use some kind of comparison system to talk about the seasons. But I actually think I liked the second season a little bit better.
Interesting.
Yeah. Maybe because I felt in a little more invested. Mm-hmm. Like I was interested at the beginning, and it's all these crazy ideas kind of flowing around, and then you kind of sink in a little bit and see, like what's going to happen to these people. And I think as you kind of grow with them, you get a little more invested in how they're evolving. And I think that's a lot about what the show's about, is how we think about ourselves, and some things we have control over, things we don't have control over, things that are scenario driven, things that are internal and inherent, all those things are kind of what makes us us, and the idea about how we can change and how we can grow, or how we can't. So it's interesting to me to just kind of continue along that journey with them. So maybe I don't know if I think it was better, but the newness was gone and a little bit of the excitement was gone, and then I just felt a little more compelled to stick with them. And
well, I think that's an interesting thing to talk about, though. It's almost like the first season was like, here are all the big ideas, and then this is where we're going to kind of pull it down and actually spend time with the characters and spend time with the development of the world of The Good Place, as it were, and so forth. But yeah, I mean, because I think that they got to be a little bigger in the first season than they did in the second.
Yeah.
And the more I think about it, it's in the first season, part of the fun of the first season is that each of the characters are at each other's throats as they're learning to push the boundaries of their behavior. And the second season, they realize that they're all in this together.
Right.
So they find ways to try to find
just
that
like 52nd Street. And so I think that as we were discussing, when we get to that point, we'll find that the third season really was Glass Houses, and that season 4, I'm looking forward to their Nylon Curtain. It's going to be pretty deep stuff.
I don't know. I think we lost them.
Have you tried substituting any other artists?
That was just the first one to pop in my head, to be honest. We had no idea what we were going to talk about that night.
Yeah, honestly, we went in blind, and we came up with a gem, like a diamond in the rough, as it were, like Aladdin.
Like Aladdin. Yeah.
Why is it coming back?
It
to
all
Aladdin
goes back
again?
to Aladdin, and that's unfortunate right now.
It is super unfortunate. But I am interested to hear briefly, anyway, what your beef might be with Billy.
Yeah,
it's a touchy subject. So a lot of people really have deep feelings, positive feelings for Billy Joel.
I should mention now he was my first concert.
Oh,
yeah, it's a little boy in F-13 growing up in suburban Detroit, and all I wanted for my birthday was to see Billy Joel.
Did you like him because he was your first concert, or did you already like him?
I already liked him.
And then you saw him and it made you like him more?
It was the only one of my dad's records that wasn't awful.
Name some other records that your dad had?
Oh, God.
Please, describe in great detail. As your dad listens to this podcast.
Yes, as I know. And he will, and I will hear about this in 2 weeks when it posts.
Just name 2. I want to compare.
Well, he's a Fanalo the Manilow. Speaking of who we were talking about in the car on the way here, Streisand.
Oh, Streisand.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, Barry Manilow's music had a place in time, okay? Yeah. And I don't necessarily want to listen to it or revisit it ever. But I do think that for Barry, at the time he was making that music, and I feel like there was a sincerity to it that was, I could see why people could attach to it. My problem with Billy Joel, and I feel like
please
it's
break our hearts.
Crowd. I have never felt a sincerity from William Joel. In fact, I'm part of a group of people that used to have a website where we broke down his lyrics online, and then we
wait. Where is this website? Was that on GeoCities?
It was maybe it was Angel Fire or members.aol.
Angel Fire?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It was still relevant at the time. GeoCities/406817.
Do you have the counter of how many visitors? Like the
little,
well, you want to know
the green neon at the bottom. Yeah.
You want to know how many people are listening or looking.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Counter's relevant.
No sincerity?
No sincerity for me.
Okay.
My mom was a big Billy fan. That was her two things were Jim Morrison and Billy Joel.
That seems weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty divergent right there.
And I even have to say,
the Lizard
as sometimes
King and the Piano Man?
As cheesy as Morrison could be sometimes and dramatic or whatever, I still feel like, I don't know. I don't buy Billy Joel.
But, I mean,
what's the
come out, Virginia, don't let me wait.
Well, wait, what's
Catholic Girls start much too late.
I'm going to make that's the only Billy Joel song that I do like.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I'm saying that in public, and I could probably take some heat for that from my crew, my anti-Billy crew.
Angel Fire's gonna be hot tonight.
Somebody just dusted off the
and
password.
And we are legion. There are at least 5 of us now.
Passwords are getting reset.
I don't know. I mean, people don't like to hear it, but I know we don't always, he just sings about experiences as if they are his own. And I realize he's trying to tell the story of other people. And as a journalist, obviously, I don't want to take that away from anybody. But when he says certain things, I'm just like, shut up. Like,
the thing is that all anybody has to say is Uptown Girl, and then any argument I have immediately goes under.
So there's a point, because
I can't.
your point is very valid, and I'll explain why. So earlier this week, so we're about to get some real. I'm about to admit some things in front of the 10 people that are here.
You're going to get the real here?
Yeah, the real deal. So earlier this week, I actually got interviewed by a journalist for Vanity Fair.
Why? I'm sorry to sound so shocked.
I asked,
for those who couldn't see the surprise on Jared's face.
And I don't even know if I'll even be in the article. But what had happened is this journalist who I follow on Twitter was looking for people who had been to the first Lilith Fair. And for those of you who are not familiar with Lilith Fair, it was an all-woman music festival to counter the...
I'm familiar with Lilith Fair. Yeah. I'm just wondering how your name came up.
Because I had been to the first one. Because for those who may not be familiar with Lilith Fair, it was counter to the big dick energy that was Lollapalooza at the time. And I went to the first one in Detroit, and she was doing an oral history of people's experiences there. And at the time, pretty much the only other concert I had ever been to was Billy Joel. So I went from Billy Joel to Sarah McLachlan, Fiona Apple, the Cardigans, and Paula Cole. And she had asked me, and I had given this some thought, like, is this kind of like she knew I was a writer about music, and she said, asked me, like, did this experience kind of point you in that direction? And I was like, thinking about Harley, a lot. And to your point, yes, because I realized that I'm Billy Joel, Uptown Girl. We all know it's about Christy Brinkley, but it can be pretty much about anybody. And Sarah McLachlan.